Welcome to Talking Crop, the Goodyear Farm Tires podcast for farmers by farmers. Hello, I'm Will Evans and welcome to episode 5 of the Talking Crop podcast brought to you by Goodyear Farm Tires. And today we are in mid-Suffolk where I'm talking to Colin and Sarah Tween. Colin and Sarah, hi.
Hi.
Thank you very much for having us here. Really good to see you. Tell us a bit about the farm, Colin. How long have you been here? What's going on?
We've had this farm here in one house 32 years, and before that we had two other farms, but we split up and all went our own ways, and now I just farm this one here on my own, and my daughter helps harvest time.
Yeah, okay. So are you from a long line of farmers?
Yes, my dad before me was a farmer, and his dad before that was a farmer.
All in the east, this kind of...
Well, no, we originated from Essex.
Okay.
Then we moved down from Essex in about 1980s.
Right, okay.
Because we was all pigs up there, and we didn't want to keep on with the animals, so we bought arable land down here and gradually built up over the years.
Right, okay. And Sarah, you obviously grew up on the farm, typical kind of farm childhood?
Yeah, I grew up on the farm, absolutely loved the childhood that we had, of the opportunities of being around everything, and especially like harvest time and school holidays were fantastic, of like being about and during harvest, and it was so much fun, and spending hours of our lives like on tractors and having rides on the combine and things when we were little. But yeah, it was brilliant. I wanted to make sure as well, like after that, when I did move out and away from the farm, I'm still only like 5 minutes away from the farm, because I didn't want to be miles away from it as well. So I did move out, but not far.
So did you grow up thinking you might be a farmer, or did you always think you'd do something kind of related? But
originally my plan was to be an agronomist.
Okay.
That was my original plan.
Yeah.
I planned on going to Harper Adams University.
Yeah.
So I've always had the interest in the farm, and that was my original plan. And then in order to get into Harper, you need like about 6 weeks minimum work experience. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I was then looking for work experience. I'd done a couple of weeks work experience with our own agronomist, which he only took me on because he knew I was actually interested in it. He'd had a lot of people in the past that couldn't even be able to get out of bed in the morning to go out for a day, let alone 2 weeks worth of somebody not wanting to learn about it. So I'd done that and I loved it, and I thought it'd be great because then I'd be able to do that and then be around again, like harvest and things, because then there is less to do in the agronomy world. But in part of me doing my work experience and trying to find more, I spoke to one of the owners of who lived in one of these barns previously, and he at the time was the head of the chemistry team at a food testing laboratory locally. Okay. So I set about doing work experience there. The chemist couldn't accommodate me, but the microbiology team could. So I'd done 2 weeks work experience in the microbiology team, and I pretty much then never left. I'd done work experience and then I worked full time in the summer, and then they put me through my apprenticeship as well. So 12 years later, I'm still there after doing a couple of weeks of work experience.
Awesome. So tell me about the job. What does that entail in terms of sort of day to day?
So day to day, I deal with a lot of like customer inquiries to do with testing requirements, and we do anything from food, water, digestate, compost, animal feed testing. So there's quite a lot of crossover in what I do as day to day. It's also kind of handy with a few farmers that we do get to talk to when they don't understand what's going on with their testing and what they're asking for. So I'll quite often it's quite handy as well, of that I do kind of get where they're coming from, and I know more of that side, the testing side, as well as where they're coming from with the farming side. So it's an interesting industry to be in. Yeah.
And do you travel around the country much, or are you mostly?
Mostly I'm based in Needham Market, but then I don't really go that far. We do travel to see like clients and things. We have clients across the UK, just dependent, and attend like trade shows and things. So I do get to travel a bit as well. I'm in London tomorrow, to be fair, at a trade show. So
Awesome, what an interesting job.
It's good.
Colin, you touched on it earlier, but you've seen some quite big changes in the family business.
Yes.
Over the last number of years.
We was two families started off. My dad and my uncle started the business off with a few animals. We built the animals up, and then when we had all left school, we wanted to go into arable, so we bought the main farm at Stanton and run the farm in Essex and the one at Stanton. Then after about 5-6 years, we moved the whole lot from Essex down to Stanton in Suffolk. Then we had gradually built the land up and bought more land as we could afford to do it. And we used to run lorries at the same time to help finance it all. Then we built it up, bought land at Horham near Eye and some land at Dickleborough. Then when the farm at Badwash come up, we bought that and sold off land.
Okay.
Then this one went to auction and once sold, and we bought it afterwards, and that's how we built it up.
Right, okay.
But then 12 years ago we had some family issues and we all wanted to go our own way. So I kept here and one cousin kept the other farm, but the main farm had to be sold.
Okay.
And all the machinery.
Okay. We often, in farming circles, I get sort of quite annoyed about how, especially sort of politicians and policymakers, they talk about farmers this, farmers that, as if every farming family is exactly the same. But every situation is different, aren't they? And we're all trying to, yes, run our farms, but we're also family stuff as well, isn't it? And there are lots of people involved who see things differently. It's normal, isn't it?
And I think a lot of family troubles in farming is when it's handed over, or the hours you work and you're never at home.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Actually, sometimes there's not a lot of time to have those conversations about the long-term future, is there?
No, I never seen my two daughters grow up, but now I've got a granddaughter and I spend more time with her, which I missed out with my own two daughters. Just because she's always at work.
Yeah, it's quite a familiar
That's the thing
isn't it?
as well. Back then, like when there was the three farms together, Dad would only have a Sunday afternoon off.
Yeah.
Like that was it. And because then the main farm was at Stanton, he would be travelling there every single day. And that would be where then the main base is of everybody. So it was all right if like everybody else like finished at like 5-6 o'clock, but then he'd then have to drive back here. So yeah, it was difficult, but like that's the thing, like we've always been involved in it and wanting to be around and be outside and in amongst it. So it was in some ways it's hard of the fact that like because he wasn't always around, but it was the understanding of why he wasn't here, and it was what it is. And
yeah, it's funny with grandchildren, isn't it? My dad didn't see much of me and my sister growing up either because he was always working. But yesterday I was away, but he sent me a picture of him and my eldest daughter. He'd got her rolling on the tractor in the field, and he was looked proud as punch. I'm sure he had a lot more patience with her than he ever had with me. But farming families. But you've managed to. I suppose the important thing is throughout all the changes and I guess some sort of turmoil and difficult decisions, you've adapted and you've got to where you are now.
Yeah, and when we had the farm split up, we bought most of the machinery we got now back out of the sale. And that was a hard day going to your own farm sale to buy your own stuff back.
I bet it was, yeah.
And bidding against other people.
Yeah. I bet it was.
It was hard to kind of watch things go as well, of like even daft things of like tractors and things that like I'd driven and like the bale chaser and things like that. It's just like I'd spent hours of my life like being on those and driving them, and it was hard to see. Also, it was just like I don't think it was the realization of like how many tractors that were actually in existence of what was owned was insane. But it was hard to watch things go, and it was hard to then also have to be that we were in the situation of having to bid back on what we wanted to be able to keep, which was difficult because going into that we didn't really know. We knew what we could spend, but we didn't know whether we was going to be successful in actually buying back what we wanted to keep.
Yeah, but obviously you got what you needed to. Yeah. So tell me about the farm as it looks now. What you're farming now?
We do all arable crops. We do wheat, barley, oats and winter beans. Everything what goes through a combine.
Yeah, okay.
Other than our flour and bumblebee mixers.
Yeah, okay. So you're in SFI?
Yes.
Schemes, and have you always been sort of had that environmental focus, or is that
Because
relatively new?
when it first started, I liked the idea of wildflowers and on different patches, but now it sort of pays better than farming.
Yeah, I suppose it's you diversify where you can. It's just another income stream, isn't it? I guess. But then there is also you say you like the farm. I've surprised myself in recent years how much that just walking around the farm it gives you a bit of a spring in your step, I think, doesn't it?
And the last field of oats I drilled was going to be a low input crop, but now they've pulled the SFI away. The paperwork wasn't quite completed, so I've lost that.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going through that at the moment, aren't they?
Yes. And supposed to be bringing it back in 2026, but what it'll be then, who knows?
We'll see. And do all the crops go for human consumption?
I grow feed wheat, which most of it seems to go Ipswich and out the country.
Yeah.
I do feed barley, and that usually finishes up at Bury, but this year it's gone on a boat. And the oats, some have gone on a boat and some have gone to Bedford for human consumption.
Right, okay. It's funny when I come down here. I live in the west of the country, and it's very much, although there's a few crops grown, it's mostly livestock farms. But coming here, it's always a reminder when you come in east and you see the big tractor dealerships and the mills, and so you're a proper arable country here, isn't it? You're right in the heart of it, I guess.
Yeah, right in the heart, main part. Yeah.
But, some of the fields around here would be as big as the farms around our neck of the woods. It's big flat fields. It's kind of makes me quite jealous. What's the soils like around here? Is it quite good soils?
I've got some heavy, but the majority of it is quite easy working.
Yeah.
That's if you catch it right when I plough and get a good seedbed, you're guaranteed almost a good crop.
Yeah.
Because that does hold the moisture.
Yeah. And rainfall, what's that like?
Had too much the last 2 years. I actually got a payment this year from the government to help improve my drainage, because we had so much rain here. There's water everywhere.
Right.
And my cousin farms about 3 miles across the fields, and he got half the rain I did.
Right, okay. It was very localised last year, wasn't it? Often where we are, we're in a sort of little bit of a weird microclimate, and I could see it raining all around us last year, quite often in the summer. It was a very strange time. Yeah.
And one morning I got up, thought, it's rained again. Can't see how much in the rain gauge, but it's running over.
I don't want to know that. Like last year.
The Talking Crop podcast is produced by Goodyear Farm Tires, leading the field in farming innovation, reliability and performance. View our wide range of tyres at goodyearfarmtires.eu or visit the link in the description.
So long term, do you see yourself sort of back here and wanting to carry the farm on? Would you like to sort of get more involved in the future, or are you just happy doing what you're doing at the moment?
I would like to have more involvement in the farm in future, if it's possible.
Yeah.
It is tricky because of obviously everything that's currently going on, with the whole inheritance tax thing and everything. But yeah, it is a tricky thing. But I would prefer it if I could in some ways move away from like the day-to-day what I do, to be able to do more stuff like that. My partner's a shepherd as well, so he runs his own sheep, and I've got my own pedigree sheep as well.
Okay.
So yeah, like that day-to-day, like yes, it's crazy when I do have time off work, because it's usually helping for harvest, or like the other week I had a week off for lambing sheep.
A week off.
A week off allowing my sheep, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I enjoy it. I think my boss gets very worried at me about harvest because I do a full day at work and then I'll go corn cutting all night or whatever's needed, and then there's people that come back to work the next day moaning that they're tired, and you're like, yeah, I went to bed at like 1 o'clock this morning, and so yeah, he gets a bit worried about me at that point of whether I'm doing too much. But yeah, a lot of the people I work with don't quite understand it because they're like, well, could you not just tell your dad you don't feel like it? And I'm like, it doesn't really work like that. And I'm like, it is like, it's so enjoyable, and I do love being, especially harvest time, I love being more involved. And like the times that, like now, driving the combine, that's the combine I grew up, and sitting in the passenger seat asking my dad millions of questions, driving him up the wall. And like to think that then that we've still got that combine and I'm driving it on my own now, and it just feels kind of like incredible, and kind of like it does feel sad of like that Grandad never saw it of what is then like been able to become, but yeah, I'd say I would definitely be proud of like what we've done. And like my 35X tractor, that's in memory of him because he bought that originally. But yeah, it's definitely something that if I can, I would like to be able to continue.
Yeah, it's that family aspect's obviously important to you, that multi-generational aspect. Tell me about the tractors of the 35X and the Massey Fergusons I got very excited about when I drove past on the way in.
Yeah, so my Massey Ferguson 35X was the first tractor I had, which, like I said, my grandfather bought me. And yeah, it was just kind of one of those things that it came home and it was a long-winded project, to say the least, of on and off of restoring it. And
did you restore it yourself?
Yeah, but it was like we then made it so that I then was doing like a few ploughing matches locally and tractor runs and things like that, and some shows, and then it's kind of like progressed from there. And then my 35X, once I'd been using that quite a lot, I then was definitely a Massey girl at that point. And I then also now have my 135 as well, which that only come about because we went to actually go and buy a straw chopper from a farmer, and I saw the 135 in the shed, and I was like, I want that. He's just like, no, I'm not selling it. Absolutely not. Because he'd had it since it was like 6 months old.
Okay.
So he's like, no, it's not for sale. And then I'd spoken to him more and more and sort of said, oh, I do ploughing matches. Like, I'm not going to just try and make money. I want to do it up and use it. And also, something that's close to my heart as well is the Pink Ladies Tractor Road Run, which played a big part in it, of me being actually able to buy that tractor. It was part of the thing that really made him go, actually, hang on a minute, it's just sat in my shed not doing anything. It's quite clear to see that it would be used and loved, because I know that he had originally said, like, because you'd said about it in the shed, and he's like, no, he's like, if anyone's having it, she needs to make me the offer.
Okay.
And that was that. So it's quite a nice thing that because of then like the Pink Ladies Tractor Road Run, which is then why like my 135 I managed to have that and then purchase it, which I did get a lot of laughs at the bank when they're like, oh, what are you getting the money out for? Are you buying a car? And I was like, no, tractor. So yeah, it's kind of like a bit of an unusual thing, especially like with tractor shows and stuff. Like even when I used to go to the Great Dorset Steam Fair, and my 35X used to go down there, and have a lot of people like look at me and question my tractor and everything, and I'd also often wear like vintage dresses to match my tractor.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a thing, but it's a really enjoyable thing, and it's like kind of just sort of progressed really.
Tell me a bit more about the Pink Ladies Tractor Run.
So the Pink Ladies Tractor Road Run this year will be the 21st run itself. It is based in Norfolk, and it ends up being hundreds of ladies, all pinked up on tractors, or also all pinked up, with you name it that's pink on them, all raising money for the Cancer Research Breast Cancer Appeal. So I've been part of that for the last 10 years now, which is a bit scary. But I only ever found out about it from there was a poster about it on a tractor at Orpid Steam Rally, locally here. And that's when I first heard about it, and I then carried on and then ended up, I'd done the run on my 35X for a few years. And then once I had my 135, just because of the fact of it's got a Lamborn cab,
It's got a cab, yeah.
that it does make things a little bit easier when it's bad weather. There was a year where we were very glad that Dad hadn't cleared all the clothing out of his truck, because I ended up being in a boiler suit and one of his waxy jackets, because it was absolutely torrential when I was on my 35X. So yeah, it's a big thing in the Norfolk and Suffolk area. So to date, we've raised just over 1.2 million.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's insane.
Wow.
Just from a crazy bunch of ladies that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think last year there was like 191 tractors.
Right.
Because Annie, who's one of the organisers, did say that she thought once it got to the 20th anniversary that the numbers might reduce a little bit, because so many people wanted to be involved in the 20th anniversary. But that didn't really happen. We still had 191 last year. So yeah, it's pretty incredible.
How far do you go on the run?
Must be getting on for 20 miles.
Yeah, it must be something like that.
Yeah, okay. Right, it's a fair trip then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, amazing! What a brilliant thing to do. So, are you going to carry on do it?
Yeah. Last year I was unable to do it because my friend was getting married that day. So, and I did check with her that day. I was like, "You're getting married on a Sunday," and she's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Okay, that's fine." So, much to Annie's disappointment, I wasn't doing it, but I still fundraised as usual. I'll be back on it again this year. I'm looking forward to being part of it again.
What kind of tractors? Do you get all kinds of different classic and vintage tractors?
There's no stipulation of age limits or what it has to be. So there's anything and everything. There's a lot of vintage. There's a lot of modern stuff now, as well. But it's quite well organised as well, because they usually split it up so that then all the vintage stuff is at the front and then they have all the modern behind. Just makes it a little bit more safe as well.
Big crowds come out to watch.
Yeah, like Harleston High Street is absolutely incredible. Like when you drive down Harleston High Street, it's hard to not end up like having a tear in your eye with the fact of like there's hundreds of people that line the street just to see a crazy bunch of ladies raising money for charity on tractors, and it's insane. But it's become such a massive thing, and like Annie says to me quite often, she's like, you're a bit of an ambassador of it, because I'm lucky enough that I own my tractors. There's a lot of ladies that borrow them from farmers, and even with the farmers that they spend the time helping these ladies learn how to drive them, and as it's not as simple as just driving a car. It's a lot of involvement of it, but it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, and it was James who from Goodyear who spotted the Goodyear tires on your tractor at Newark.
Yeah, when I was at Newark,
and then he came and tracked you down.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So I was at Newark, part of the world record attempt for the most massive 135s in one place, mine was like on the front row, and as she is a Pink Ladies tractor, she is always pinked up, so she's always decorated, so I fundraise wherever I go. It was something different to say the least in the lineup of pink ribbons, and it gets a lot of attention when it is out.
I did read about that it was in Classic Tractor magazine. I'm a nerd, I get Classic Tractor magazine, so it was a big feature on that world record attempt in there, wasn't there?
Yeah.
The tractors all in the 135 numbers. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So the Goodyear tyres on the Massies, did they come on it when it arrived, or have you put them on afterwards? Or
No, when I had my 135 come home originally, which was an F registration. My dad said, "You're not wearing the new tyres out, put the old ones on." So we did, and 40 odd years later, nearly 50 years later, we're getting them out and putting them on a tractor what we restored.
Those original tyres did all
They're
right.
definitely original tyres, and the rims are original, brand new rims, everything. It's
Oh, yeah.
never been used.
Yeah.
But the oldest tractor we've got on the farm is a Major, and it's a 1953 Ford.
Is it?
And my dad bought it when it was 6 months old.
Right,
So
okay.
it's been about a long time.
Yeah, how often do you use that?
Usually it has one out in a year, goes to Woolpit Steam Rally.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I tend to sort of use ours for. We've got a 35, a 135, and a 65 Mark II. So I'll tend to occasionally put a topper on the back just for a bit of fun, or it's usually got the log splitter or the saw bench on. But it's kind of those kind of little bits of jobs.
When I learnt to drive a tractor, I had a job to get on it because I wasn't tall enough.
Yeah,
Now I have a job to get
No.
on it because I've had a hip put in.
yeah. So, where do you see the future of the business? Where would you like to be in sort of 10, 20 years' time with it? GE?
I'd like to see the farm, if at all possible, carried on, and Sarah and her sister share doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And how farming is now, I would love if it made a bit more money so I could employ Sarah and do it
Mm-hmm.
both together now.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing of it, because like it doesn't bring in any more than it does in. Like it can't afford to. It pays my dad's wage, it pays my mum's wage, but it can't afford to do any more. So yes, it would be lovely of being able to, if we could make more, to be able to have it that I don't have the full-time work at the lab, and that I have more involvement here, and especially with that, and like my sheep as well, and I have that sort of as a combination. But it just depends on, I have to wait and see what happens and what's possible.
Would you like to have the sheep here? Presumably they're not on this farm.
No, they're not here.
You're on your
yeah, my
partner's farm.
partner, he's lands in Norfolk.
Okay.
So they have been here though. They did graze here earlier in the year, and we had some here last year when it was really, he was struggling for grass because of how dry it was. So yeah, I think he quite enjoyed it, going to check sheep most days.
Yeah. 'Cause years ago, we used to have sheep on the farm, but my younger brother done them,
Okay, yeah.
and he took his own life, so we got rid of the sheep. And Sarah said, when they wanted to bring the sheep here, "Can you cope with it?" I said, "Was one way to find out is to bring them," and I quite enjoyed looking after them.
Yeah, it's you're seeing a lot more livestock on arable farms now. It's kind of come back into style again, isn't it? I remember when I went to Harper Adams in the when did I start? 1999, and I met sort of arable farmers from the east of England for the first time. They thought it was hilarious that we like grazed the wheat with sheep and things like that. They thought I was some sort of backwoods hillbilly, but now it's kind of all come back into fashion, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's just got a new label.
Like my partner's sheep at the moment, most of them are still out grazing on turnips and radish, and they're actually, well, we've still got enough out there that they're lambing out there as well. Most of them anyway.
I think that's what's brought a lot of it on, is like these overwinter crops, and they put the sheep out there to eat them down. So that's why it was more sheep about here this year than ever seen before.
Yeah. So, are you confident about the future of farming? Is it a difficult time at the moment? There's quite a lot of negativity, but there is still an awful lot of people who want to be farmers and who are very enthusiastic and innovative. Are you confident about the future?
I think it's going to be hard for a while, but I don't think things are going to change until people wake up to where their food comes from. And when it's all coming from abroad and they're not realising what they're getting, hopefully things will come better again.
That's the thing, like I remember years ago when I'd done work experience with our agronomist, that when we went back to school we had to do a talk about our work experience, and I done this whole PowerPoint presentation about agronomy and the sprays and chemicals that go on fields and things like that, and they didn't understand any of it. They literally thought, people think they see a sprayer and that the whole entire tank is full of chemical. You're like, it costs enough as it is with the quantity that you put in there with the water, let alone you thinking that it's pure chemical. And that most of them, they didn't understand or realise where their food comes from. They just think it comes from a freezer in a supermarket, which is quite worrying. And I think a lot of the kids aren't involved in it. And they then don't understand where things come from, which I think that in some ways needs to change, of that they need to have more involvement of an understanding of where, like perhaps like more teaching of the basic of life skills of things like that, and as well of like where food actually comes from, and what the purpose is of all these fields, and what's actually growing in it.
Do you think that we can do a better job as farmers with that? You know, there's a lot of people who are doing interesting stuff going into schools, and there's a lot of sort of NFU and AHDB do a lot around that, don't they? And do you think that we could do better as an industry with that?
I think possibly. I think since, like, as well with Clarkson's farm, that's made a lot of difference. That it's made a lot of, like, admittedly some things in it are a bit like, it doesn't work quite like that, but but it has made people actually watch it and want to be sort of like involved in it and thinking about it, of like, oh, there's actually a lot that goes on a day-to-day, and like harvest is difficult, and like people don't even understand. Like you've had it before where footpath walkers are like, oh, why is the combine not going? And you're like, well, it's raining. It's not something that you can do just because it's the time of year. It's very much weather and everything orientated.
But I think things are changing, because like the village have got a summer fete, and they want us to take a tractor and a stand up there so people can ask questions from the village and the new houses, and hopefully they'll understand more what we're trying to do.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. You're going to do that?
Yeah.
So what kind of questions would you anticipate getting?
Well, I think they think farmers are spoiling the countryside, but if it weren't for us, it wouldn't get looked after at all. And perhaps they will ask questions and realise where their food comes from and understand more what we are trying to do. Because I think most people just think farmers are always moaning, which we do, but they might understand why we're moaning.
Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? And usually we're moaning about the weather, aren't we? You know, surely everyone understands that in Britain. But I think it's there are. I mean, you mentioned Clarkson's farm, and I've had loads of people ask me about that. I was at the dentist. You know, the dentists always talk to you when they've got like your fingers in your mouth. And he was all sort of asking me about Clarkson's farm, and he you know, he hadn't realised how there was that. I think it was the end of series 1, and Cheerful Charlie revealed how much money he'd made for the year, and it was, you know, it was like £5 or something. You know, and it was quite a shocking moment, I think, for people who aren't involved in farming. Though I don't think any of us would be that surprised, but it does show that the sort of cut through that those programmes can make, doesn't it? And there's a lot of people engaging on social media and things like that as well, and their YouTube channels and stuff. I think do good work, and
Well, I think these last 2 years, if someone said to me, we want your farm to put houses on, I'd actually said yes. But running up to that, I'd have told them where to go. But you just feel at the moment you're just fighting a losing battle. And you keep on and think next year it'll be better. And it's not at the moment, is it?
And the weather doesn't help that, does it? We talked earlier, didn't we, about the last 2 summers we've had, and it does make it feels worse, doesn't it, when they say that? It's a very sort of basic level. It feels worse when the weather's rubbish all the time, doesn't it? It's rain, and it makes everything difficult. And I think we're hopefully due for a good harvest. It'll make a big difference, I think. Just need the prices to pick up.
Yeah, the prices. I'd like to have a price so you know what you're working to. We had some people come from Brown & Co., 2 young lads, to talk to me how I can change my way of farming and make money. So they come out and they told me what they thought I should do. but that's just, they just don't understand what you're trying to do. And I said to them, they said, what do you do? I said, I'm a professional gambler. And they said, what do you mean by that? Do you earn any money out of it? I said, well, I've been trying now for a lot of years and I'm still here. But, and they just said, why are you a professional gambler? I said, we gamble with the weather, the crops, what we're going to get from at the end of it. And they said, oh, we've never looked at it like that.
Yeah, we're all gambling, aren't we? All right, Colin and Sarah, thank you so much for having us here. I know you've got a lot to do, so we won't keep you any longer. But yeah, it's been brilliant to hear your story, and thank you for talking to us on Talking Crop.
That's right, it's been a pleasure.
No problem at all, thank you.